Thank you all for continuing to do your job here so well. It's wonderful. I wasn't talking to you, Mark.
Okay, we're live on YouTube, so the July 23rd, 2020 meeting of the Yarmouth Zoning Board of Appeals is about to convene as a precautionary measure to reduce the spread of the coronavirus. We are having this meeting remotely. My name is Kathy Williams, and I am the Yarmouth Town Planner and will be serving as your moderator for this virtual meeting. I will now turn it over to the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Well, thank you very much, Ms. Moderator. My name is Stephen DeYoung. I'm the chairman of the Zoning Board of Appeals, and we're going to call out all our members to determine that we do, in fact, have a quorum tonight. Mr. Nicanello, are you present?
I am present, sir. Thank you.
Mr. Igo, are you present?
I am, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Britta, are you present?
Present.
And Ms. DeMartin, are you present?
I am.
All right, we have 5 members. We have made our quorum, and please, I'll now turn it back to the moderator to explain just how these remote presentations occur.
Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, this meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals is being conducted via remote participation. Although no in-person attendance is allowed, every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access and participate in the proceedings. Persons who would like to view this meeting while in progress may do so by watching via this virtual meeting or the live feed on the Town of Yarmouth YouTube channel. You may also listen to the meeting by dialing into the number provided on the notice of meeting. We will also post a recording of the meeting on the Town of Yarmouth website as soon as possible. Please be patient as we work through any technical challenges we might have during this meeting. For all meetings, to reduce confusion during the meeting, all audience participants will enter the virtual meeting muted. Participants will be unmuted when called upon to speak by the chair or the moderator. All votes must be roll call votes. All motions made and seconded, and the chair will ask for a roll call vote. If you are not speaking, please mute yourself to avoid unnecessary background noise. Do not use a speakerphone or Bluetooth device when speaking. For applicants and presenters, applicants can use the raise hand button or the press *9 on their phone to identify themselves to the chair. The moderator will unmute applicants when they are called upon to speak during their portion of the agenda. Applicants or presentations provided by the applicant will be displayed in the virtual meeting by the moderator and advanced by the moderator at the direction of the applicant. If pre-approved for larger projects, temporary panelist capabilities may be given to presenters to share their screens while giving their presentation. All presenters and speakers need to identify themselves by first, last name, and affiliation when speaking. For public hearings, during the portion of the hearing designated for public comment, the chairman will ask who in the audience has any public comments or questions. Members of the public may speak by selecting the raise hand button and waiting for the chair to call on them, or pressing the *9 on their phone to indicate that they would like to comment. As an alternative to making comments via the online audio or the phone, you may also submit comments to the moderator via the virtual meeting chat function. To do this, click on the chat icon at the bottom of your screen and type your message. When prompted, the moderator will read comments and questions into the record. Members of the public recognized by the chair are asked to identify themselves by first and last name and affiliation for the public record, and then to provide their comment. Prior to concluding opportunities for public comment, the chairman will ask one last time if anyone wishes to speak or give additional comment. I will now hand the meeting back over to the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Well, thank you very much, Ms. Moderator. And again, we are now in the regularly scheduled meeting this July 23. We have as our first matter petition number 4729, that of SAI Communications, LLC, concerning property located at 1045 Route 28. That's right behind the postal office there, or very close to it, for those at home that don't know where 1045 is. And this evening, we're being asked to consider matters relating to condition number 12. I understand Sean Mahoney's present. Mr. Mahoney? If you could, thank you.
Hi, good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board and everyone.
Mr. Mahoney, excuse me, Mr. Mahoney, are you calling in?
Yes, I am here.
Okay, well, we can't see you with the video. Do you have a video button that maybe left off?
I don't see it here on the.
He's an attendee, Steve, so he doesn't have the ability. I'd have to promote him to a panelist for him to be.
I got you.
seen.
Okay. I'm sorry, Mr. Mahoney. Please go ahead and tell us what you have to tell us.
Okay, my name is Sean Mahoney from SAI Communications. I am here on behalf of Selco Partnership, who received the special permit number 4729 back in 2018. One of the conditions of the permit was to return after 1 year to discuss the status of plantings at the property. I was before the board back in March, I believe. Actually, it might have been February before, the world has changed. And I explained to the board that due to certain issues at the property, we weren't able to start construction immediately or soon after the decision was rendered. I related to the board that the intent was to start these plantings that are required under condition 12 were going to start in the spring. We placed in some trees in April, and we placed in some low bushes as required, some Green Mountain boxwoods in the beginning of June. I submitted to Sandy the few photos of the trees and of the boxwood as they are placed on the property. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you have regarding the plantings and the status of the project.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mahoney. Mr. Nicanello, do you have any questions of Mr. Mahoney? Mr. Nicanello?
Yes, sir. I was just unmuting myself. At this time, I do not have any questions. I have not seen the plantings, and that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Martin?
Not terribly much so. I saw the plantings and they were, which by the way, somebody needs to be watering because they're gonna die if they don't get some water. They were planted kind of, in one case anyways, just pretty much almost under another tree. Would have been nice to see some of them maybe over toward the forest roadside or whatever, where they could have done more good than just being kind of plunked in anywhere. And maybe Kathy can say maybe that's where they were always planted. If that's so, I guess I can't say anything about it. They definitely need water, and I wouldn't have placed them quite where they are, but that's me.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm trying to share the presentation. I'm sorry. It took me a minute to get that up for you guys.
well, while you're doing that, I'd call on Ms. Britta. Do you have any questions, Ms. Britta?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to clarify, with these plantings, does this make Verizon compliant with the conditions that we outlined when we issued the permit? I think it does, but I just like verification of that. Does this mean everything that was supposed to be done has been done? Regarding the plantings, just the plantings.
Right.
Mr. Mahoney, could you speak to that?
Sorry, yes, to my best of my knowledge, this does make everything us compliant. We offered the 3 trees and they are placed roughly where they were shown on plans. And as far as the boxwoods, we were only offering a low bushes. And when our contractors went out, they were trying to get yew bushes, which are the larger existing ones on the property. And apparently the quality wasn't very good. These boxwoods should fill in relatively nicely. They can grow to 3 to 5 feet. And I think they'll fill in the area nicely without negatively affecting sight lines in and out of the driveways that are on either side of all these plantings.
Okay, and just, Mr. Chairman, just one final question. Mr. Mahoney, you heard Mr. Martin talk about watering the new trees. Do you have a plan for that, or can you commit right now that there will be a plan so that they don't die?
There wasn't a plan for it for now. I think the responsibility now for the property is back towards the landlord. However, we do have techs that visit the site on a regular basis, but whether they have the ability to connect to a water source to water these trees, that I am not aware of. I don't know if it have a source, certainly.
Well, I think then we have an open issue with Mr. Martin's comments about if they're not watered, they're gonna die. So all the effort that has been put in to beautify the site and plant the trees will be worthless. Is there any way that you could follow up with the landlord and express the concern of the board that these plantings have to be watered?
Certainly, and I can certainly see if we can find other arrangements as well if the landlord is non-compliant or shows a lack of willingness, as the case may be.
All right, and could you somehow get back to Sandy and let us know the status of that so we could follow up if necessary?
Absolutely.
Thank you. That's all, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Britta. Mr. Igo?
Yeah, I guess the only question that I really had was along the lines of the maintenance of the trees and shrubs. I think they'll probably take, but I do think that someone is going to have to keep an eye on them. Of course, we don't know who maintains this site right now. It would be my guess that it doesn't really require much maintenance. So this is probably once a season somebody shows up and trims things and that's it. I'd hate to see them die. I suppose what we could do is, if the board was inclined, is make a condition that if, you know, we could look at this again in a year and make sure they're healthy. If they are healthy, the petitioner doesn't have to come back. Just have someone, I don't know if we have a zoning administrator anymore, but just somebody to monitor them, just to make sure they're healthy and that they're gonna last. Because I mean, if they just died, then it really defeated the purpose of our condition, while at the same time just wasting these plants, which I'd hate to see as well.
Did you have anything else?
I would find that acceptable.
All right. Well, I'd like to weigh in if I could, please, and that's, I'm sorry, Mr. Igo, were you completed?
Oh, no, I am. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, I can, you know.
Chairman, I just had a question if I could intercede,
Sure.
just based on the pictures there. And
Yeah.
in terms of the shrubs, is that the box with that little tiny thing there?
It is.
Not what I would have had in mind.
Hmm.
I mean, that'll take 20 years to get as big as the other ones.
The contractor chose the plants, and until I took these photos, I wasn't completely aware of the size of them at the location, but
Yeah. I mean, I thought that was a weed.
understood.
So, is it okay if I jump in now, Mr. Martin?
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, no, don't be sorry. Of course, this is, you know, a difficult thing, these Zoom meetings. And if we were all together, we would know when somebody had stopped asking because it would be apparent by their facial gestures. So anyway, Mr. Mahoney, I got to say, and believe me, this is no derogatory comment towards you, but the compliance with with condition 12 of this permit tells me that in the future, when we have landscaping involved as part of the improvement of landscaping involved as part of the grant of relief, that we should be much broader in the way we handle it and make darn sure that the minimum isn't done. Because I agree with Mr. Martin, if that's something that you consider boxwood, it looks to me to be a piece of tumbleweed. But I drive by this spot every single morning, Monday through Friday. Sometimes I stay home Saturday and Sunday, but looking at this strip, I'm just amazed that there isn't mulch or something that would have been put in there just as a natural understanding of how to, beautify this little strip. That was our goal. And again, Mr. Mahoney, certainly not an aspersion on you, but it is, I suggest, something that we all ought to consider in ever dealing with landscape as a condition of grant in the future. Because I'm very disappointed in the quality of what was done, and I'm extremely disappointed that apparently the idea is to throw it in and let it die. because that's what's going to happen. New growth needs water. And then after 2 years, maybe they get to the point where they can grow on their own. But with just the natural water from rain and the like. But they got to get roots down, and these things don't have that. And I'm very disappointed. Now, having said that, I am truly happy that you and your firm did a wonderful job on that flagpole that was erected. It looks just as we imagined it to be. And I'm awfully glad that you were responsive to the fencing of dealing with the neighbors' yards. And lastly, that the sinkhole in the rear exit from this property was at least partially rebuilt. So on all those things, I think you've done an amazing job. I do agree with Mr. Igo that one of the, if it may not have been stated as such, and I'd let anybody that wanted to challenge us on this, that one of the implied conditions when we talk about landscaping is that landscaping is going to be put in such a way that it will live. Otherwise, we would be looking at a worse landscaping situation with dead trees on Route 28, our central thoroughfare. So, I agree with Mr. Igo that I would have a difficult time signing off on this condition having been met today, but would welcome the petitioner back in a year's time just to make sure this vegetation is still living. Who's responsible for that isn't my problem. I think the petitioner's or the landlord's problem, but I think it would be wise and a good way to proceed to ask you to come back in a year and just show us that things are living and things are going well, and you can submit pictures as suggested from my point of view. You could submit pictures and wouldn't need to physically appear. Yeah, because again, we all on this board, if we're still here next year, are going to be aware of this site and this location because we all drive by it frequently. All right, I have nothing else I want to say, so I will open it to the public and ask if anybody in our public audience would like to speak first in any regard concerning this condition. The vote up and vote down has already been taken on the petition itself, so we don't have to have a yay group and a nay group. So anybody that is within our audience that would like to speak in any manner on condition number 12 relating to petition 4729, please let us know. And if you would, raise your hand. If you come on the screen, the moderator will put you there. And we see none. So with that, we're going to, none, am I right?
None, correct.
Okay. So then with respect to petition 4729, we close it to public debate and discussion and now bring it to, if we could, consideration of whether or not this petitioner has fully complied with condition number 12 of the grant of a special permit 4729. Anybody want to start the discussion?
Well, I would like to start the discussion insofar as I had another question, and that's related to the actual planting itself, the boxwood. I'm unaware of how long it takes a boxwood to become mature. So if this plant that's there now is going to take multiple years to become mature, then I don't think I'm satisfied that they've met the condition, and I would like to see that replanted to something along the lines as to what's there now, so we can have a mature planting now. I mean, if it was the case of the contractor didn't like the quality of what he found at a certain landscape nursery, well, there's plenty of landscape nurseries around, so he could go to another one or he could order one. But I don't think that would represent any financial hardship to the petitioner to do that. I mean, if this is something where boxwood is going to mature in a year, then this would be okay. Secondly, the maintenance of them, I think, is imperative. One way that they can do it if there's no water supply to run out there is they have what's called water bags that you can place on a bi-weekly or monthly basis. You may have seen them around newly planted trees. They're green, they're around the base, they're full of water. And they emit water a certain amount at a time, and then you come by and you refill them in that way. If you don't have a nearby water supply, they have to prevent them from dying. So that would be an alternative to them running water out there or not having water running out there. So, but I do think they need to maintain them, not let them die. And if this boxwood is going to take a number of years to mature, then it would be my position that they replant that, they mature boxwood that reflects more of what is there now. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Ms. Britta?
No, Mr. Chairman, I think your use of the word fully captures my attention. I think they have partially complied. I don't think, unless there's a watering and maintenance plan, I think it does not fully comply. So I like the word fully that you used in your description. So that's the only comment I have.
All right, thank you. Mr. Martin?
Unmute. There we go. Sorry. Yeah, I mean, it'd be good to have some condition. I wouldn't mind either way, either that they just come back in a year or that we have some kind of condition that they, if the plantings die, that they would need to be replaced. The boxwoods, I mean, I've never seen any boxwood that small, to be honest with you. So I actually think that those should be enlarged anyways. But I'm okay with either direction that the board members want.
Mr. Nicanello?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. As I said earlier, I did not notice the plantings. As you can see by the pictures, it's hard to notice because of course there was hardly anything there that wasn't there before. So I just drove right by many times like you and thought it was something and not really what we were looking for. So you know, I did learn something for the future, that when we talk about landscape, that we have to get more into detail of what we would like to see, because we have a property owner that really doesn't have much pride in the property. It's an absentee property owner, and we're all paying the price, as we have a few others in town, but not so many. But I would also agree that, you know, what work is done there has to be sustained, and we want to see something more than what we've been looking at for the last number of years, which is just a bunch of sand over a sidewalk, and no one's ever maintained any of that. And I got to give my hats off to Salco, the petitioner, who, like you said, did a great job in the cell tower, and I'm sure everyone's enjoying the nice reception that it's working. And they did fix that wonderful pothole in the parking lot, which the property owner just kept on driving over for whatever reason. I don't know why, but my hats off to the petitioner for doing what they said they were going to do. And I think in the future, when we talk about landscape, as you said, it needs to be more in detail, because we just can't have what they did, all that hard work, next year just be whisked away, which will probably happen if there's no water, because, you know, water is the source of life. So with that, thank you.
Thank you. And to Ms. Britta's comment, I stand corrected, Ms. Britta. I agree with you. They have not fully complied. My statement was, though, based upon the number of plantings they were required by our condition number 12 to be installed, and per the plans they showed us, they have complied with those plantings. But I had a line appear on my screen, I'm not sure from whom, whether it was a member of our public or somebody in this meeting, that indicated that a boxwood grows 6 inches a year. And so I will tell you that by the time this little boxwood reaches the size of the boxwood that's there, I am likely to be in my grave and won't have the benefit of it. So I'd like whoever suggested replacement, was that you, Mr. Igo?
I did, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a way to, you know, to maybe consider asking, but that's for the board to decide. So at this point, does anybody else care to have anything to say on this condition 12? And would anybody be prepared to make a motion as to whether or not to consider condition 12 as having been met and requiring no further action, or not having been met? You can do it in the alternative. Well, you're going to do one first and then you're going to do one second, I guess. We probably should vote on both. But whoever makes the motion will move on it. So anybody prepared?
I would make a motion that condition 12 has not been fully complied with insofar as the planting is not consistent with what I believe to be.
Not buy anything there. There is nothing that comes up. You're not allowed out of there right now.
Getting,
I'm sorry, we're getting somebody talking in our meeting. Thank you.
that wasn't me. Okay, that it wasn't, that it's not fully complied with insofar as the planting, I don't think is a true representation of what I believe the board thought was going to be put there. And that would be something that is like the size of what is there now. So it would be my position that I think the petitioner needs to replant that boxwood and to also maintain it so it's not going to die.
All right, so somebody's phone's ringing in.
Call from support Douglas.
Did somebody shut their phone off?
Support Douglas.
Planting and maintenance. All right, so I just kind of repeat that the way I understand you were suggesting it, Mr. Igo, would be that your motion is that to acknowledge that the petitioner has not complied with condition number 12, and that the boxwood needs to be replaced or replanted with a more mature planting, and that the plantings need to be maintained over the course of the next year.
That is correct. And I think we should have a 12-month review on this.
I'm sorry?
I think we should have a review of this in 1 year.
Okay. Anybody prepared to make a second to that motion?
I'll second it, Mr. Chairman.
As Ms. Britta seconds. For those at home, Mr. Igo moves, Ms. Britta seconds. On that motion made by Mr. Igo, seconded by Ms. Britta, does the board care to have any further discussion before proceeding to a vote? Seeing none. All those in, oh, I'm sorry, I can't do it this way. Mr. Nicanello, what are your thoughts? You yay or nay on the motion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'm voting yay on the motion.
All right, thank you, Mr. Martin.
Yay in the motion.
Mr. Igo,
Yay.
I had to hang up.
Ms. Britta,
Yay.
and I'm going to vote yay as well. That's a 5-0 vote on the motion made by Mr. Igo, seconded by Ms. Britta, and we look forward to seeing you, Mr. Mahoney, or someone else in a year if it's necessary.
I hope it's me.
I do too.
Thank you very much. Have a nice evening.
Thank you, you too. We have a second matter on our agenda. That is petition number 4841.
Nursing homes,
We have a second matter on our, do we have our moderator? I got it, yeah. He's got a voice up. A second matter on our agenda, petition 4841, that of Robert Mariana Giglio of 44 Matachee Road, I'm sorry, South Yarmouth, Mass. The petition is here. There we go
Yes.
with owner, all right. And is that Robert or Mariana or both that are listed
Both.
as owner? Okay, and what would you like to tell us about your request tonight, please?
We're looking to get an extension because the Conservation Commission, their plan that was approved has been appealed by our neighbor, and it's going to the state. So we want to appeal, we want to get an extension until that is taken care of.
And what was it appealed to in the state? Was it appealed to an appeals court?
No, it was just the decision of the Conservation Board was just appealed.
All right, is there an expected date when that appeal will be heard?
No, because we actually have not received the paperwork on it. We only know about it because Sandy in the office and Heidi in conservation got copies of it, but we as the owners never actually got copies of it.
Oh,
So we're just trying to figure out where where it's all is.
does anyone of the members of the board have any questions of the Giglios? And if so, just raise your hand so I can call on you. Ms. Britta, please, sure.
Just a couple of things, Mr. Chairman. Do we have any idea of timing? Is it a 60-day extension, a year extension? What would be the request of the applicant?
We're really want to get this all settled. And so as soon as we can possibly do that, we will. We're waiting for this whole thing with the conservation to be settled so that then we can continue on with you guys.
What is the nature of the appeal? What are they appealing?
They're appealing
The engineering
the engineering
of
of the wall, the retaining wall that we put
the
up.
driveway.
And they want the retaining wall to be taken down and all the fill from my backyard removed.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I don't know how or what recommendation you would offer for an open-ended, or can we even grant an open-ended appeal like that? I mean, I don't know. I'll obviously, be guided by your recommendation, Mr. Chairman. I don't know how we would deal with an open-ended appeal like that. Yeah,
Oh, we can't leave a petition open-ended. And if that's the case, we certainly, because of the uncertainty, one option would be to allow the petitioner to withdraw this petition without prejudice. I'm sure for them, it's a matter of cost that they've now paid for it and the like, but I'm going to, suggest that we absolutely cannot leave it open-ended. The statute doesn't allow us to do that.
Can we do it for 6 months?
We could probably consider 6 months, sure, but I'll leave that to other board members, and I'm seeing one.
It would be less. It's just a matter of, we don't know when the state is going to come and make their decision.
Sure, we understand. So, Mr. Igo, you raised your hand.
Yeah, yes. What was the date that we granted the special permit? It was a special permit or variance?
We haven't done anything.
No, they were asked for an extension back in March. Is that right?
We haven't written a decision on this. This hasn't been.
No.
Oh.
No, Ms. Clark, wasn't it back in March that the first continuance was granted? Because of the onset of COVID, we had to cancel the meeting.
Oh, I see.
I think it was continued in February because he hadn't got approval from conservation.
Oh.
And then in March, the COVID came and we had to continue again. They still weren't through Concom.
Yeah, okay. So, I mean, I don't think a finite period of time should be a problem to us, but it's got to be stated as finite as opposed to open-ended. So does the board, the petition is suggesting they're asking for 6 months. Does anybody on the board have any comment they'd like to make or on that, or questions of the petitioner because of that request? And seeing none, is anybody prepared to perhaps make a motion in consideration of their request for a 6-month extension?
So Mr. Chairman, can I just ask a question on that? So they would sign an agreement for 6 months?
They would have to.
Yes.
Be condition of tonight's grant, sure.
No, that was the only question.
Okay. Anybody else have any
I'll make
questions?
a motion for 6 months.
That was by whom? Mr. Nicanello?
Yes, thank
Yeah,
you.
okay, thank you. And that's without any other conditions, I'm assuming.
Correct.
I'll second that.
Mr. Martin, you seconded?
Yep.
All right. Anybody on the board care to have discussion concerning the motion made by Mr. Nicanello to grant a 6-month extension without condition and now seconded by Mr. Martin? And hearing none, All those, I can't do it, I'm sorry, I'm going back to my old ways. Mr. Igo, are you a yay or nay?
Yay, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you, Mr. Igo. Ms. Britta?
Aye.
We have next, Mr. Martin,
Aye.
Mr. Nicanello,
Aye.
and as am I. So that is 5-0 on the request. Thank you all for getting through this one fairly quickly, and good luck, Mr. and Mrs. Giglio, in getting your conservation appeal worked out.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're quite welcome. Now we go to petition number 4849. Our applicant this evening is Wise Living Development LLC. Christopher Wise is the manager of that limited liability corporation. The property is in question is located at 822 Route 28, 834 Route 28, and 30 Frank Road, South Yarmouth, Mass. For those at home, you might be aware that this is the Yarmouth, the Irish Village property. Hello, Mr. Healy, how are you this evening? And your microphone's off, so you might want to turn it on. I know you like to be heard when you're speaking. The zoning district that in play are many. It's B2, HMOD1, the Road District, the VOCD District, and VC2. Our applicant seeks 1, a special permit and relief in accordance with section 414.6.4 of a Yarmouth zoning bylaw, and as well Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 48. Section 6 and 9, in order to construct a bump out addition to the east side of the existing building at 834 Route 28 with a reduced side yard setback. And 2, a variance relief in accordance with section 102.2.2 of the Yarmouth zoning board, the zoning bylaw rather, and section 414.8.5 in connection with the balconies and patios of the residential senior housing units on the east and west sides of the 822 Route 28 building. For those at home, matters or materials in connection with this petition, we're online, available to all. And I know our board members all have, I hope, a summary of reasoning by Mr. Singer, who I see in attendance. Good evening, Mr. Singer. Attorney Singer. And Attorney Singer, you are prepared to go forward with the explanation of your request, are you?
Yes, sir.
All right, please feel free.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good to see you, by the way.
Members of the board. Nice to see you. For the record, my name is Andrew Singer. I'm an attorney in Dennisport, here with Kieran Healy on the screen, representing the owners and the applicants of this project. This is the creation of was going to be the South Yarmouth Wise Living Retirement Community. We have been before the planning board and have obtained use special permit. Kieran is sharing the main plan with you now. I'm going to go over the most of the summary of reasoning and the legal reasoning of how we're here back before you, because several of you on the board know that we were here and obtained some relief recently. And then Kieran will go through the relief, the changes in more detail. As I mentioned, we did have completed planning board use special permit review. This board granted some variance relief for some site in-lot trees, signs, and sidewalk waivers. This is a redevelopment of the existing site. The 2 buildings that are there are going to remain with the changes we're discussing or that have already been approved, and the lots are being merged into one. When we were here before you for variance relief recently, we had asked for some additional design review standard relief for both buildings. And there were questions and concerns raised by the board. So we withdrew those portions of the relief. And we said we would come back, and that's why we're here this evening. We have redesigned the proposal to reduce the amount of relief that is needed. What is before you tonight are literally 2 requests for 2 portions of the redevelopment. Kieran will go through how all of the other parts are conforming specifically, and I know he'll repeat this as well, but this was very important last time. The front of the 822 building, which is the Irish Village Motel building, and the front right and left sides of that building are going to be completely conforming. The variance relief that we're going to ask for to allow some balconies to remain open, and we'll discuss why, are in the back sides of the property away from the street. And then the only relief on the smaller building is on the east side, which is a special permit relief. It's what's in red here, and we will discuss that as well. Starting with that, right now that setback is conforming. Under the design guidelines of the VCOD2, you need to have building modulation. It has to bump out. The VCOD2 does allow encroachments into the side setback by special permit from this board to meet those requirements, and that's what we've requested. That's part one of the request before you tonight. We submit that the special permit relief can be granted for this because it meets the criteria set forth in the zoning bylaw for it. And I did note all of this in the summary of reasoning that I gave to you, and it deals with the appearance of the proposal, the type of proposal that this is, and the attractiveness and fact that this is set back considerably far from the street. There is a fence on the east side, so it is also not something that'll be very visible, but it does improve that side of the building. So that is the request for the special permit. And again, Kieran will go through more of the details on, well, actually, maybe I can stop there now, Mr. Chairman, on this, if you would like, and I could ask Kieran to go over this building, and then we could jump to the other building, and then if you want to just hear all of it building by building.
No, I think that's probably smart to complete one presentation before moving on to the variance request.
Okay, Kieran, if I could ask you, and I think this plan is fine for that, the board has all the other materials, maybe you could describe the changes on the west side that are conforming, and more specifically, the relief on the east side.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, Kieran Healy here with the BSC Group. On this building 834, the front of the building complies with the regulations and the rear of the building complies with the regulations. On the west side, there were two chutes with two steps up into two existing exterior doors. What we've done here is we've added in a enclosure that encompasses all of those doors, so that there's access from the sidewalk here. This is actually a bump out on the roof over the head. It's not a step into the sidewalk, but bump out. And what this does is it reduces the distance from the end to the front so that no portion of the building is longer than 50 feet to meet the modulation requirement of the VCOD2 area. So based on that, then the west side complies. On the east side, we had the same issue where this was longer than 50 feet. By placing the bump out here that's 5 by 11, we break up the length of this building so we don't have any section that's longer than 50 feet. By doing so, we are 20 feet from the property line, which is the trigger for the special permit. We're also proposing some overhangs and dormers on this building to further break up the roof lines of the building. Go ahead, Andrew.
Thank you. And for the board, what Kieran just described has all been reviewed and approved as required by the Design Review Committee and the Planning Board under VCOD site plan review. So this building, the only zoning relief at all it requires is for that red area by the special permit on the east side.
All right, keeping in mind, we're going to do one at a time. We're going to start with Mr. Nicanello, if he's available, and ask if he has any questions of either Mr. Singer or Mr. Healy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No, I reserve my questions at the moment. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. And Mr. Martin?
No, I was on design review with this, and I'm pretty familiar with it at this point. I have no other questions.
Thank you very much. And we'll go now to Ms. Britta. Any questions?
No questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Hygo?
Just briefly, Mr. Chairman. Attorney Singer, on the relief that you're requesting on that side of the building, is it my understanding that there's a 25-foot setback and you're going to have now 20.1, so you're looking for a little less than 5 feet on that side?
That is correct. My understanding is it is 25. That building conforms now, and it would be the 20.1 just for that small bump out section. The rest of the building would stay compliant.
Right.
And this is compliant with the special permit as well.
Exactly. Okay. And there is a fence that runs there right now, correct, along that side?
Yes, on the other side of those trees that you see, there is a, it might be, I think it's a 6-foot stockade fence that goes all the way down the property line from 28 back.
All right, that's the only question I had. Thank you.
All right. Is there any depiction, or could you just describe for me what this bump out will consist of?
Yeah, yes, I was talking with, we have, the plans are submitted to you, Mr. Chairman. I think we're having trouble getting that up. I don't know if Kathy is still on the line, if she could share that elevation.
Well,
It is
I'll
a
tell you-
gable ended.
I'll just
It's a
accept your
gable ended bump out.
Okay.
I can do whatever you like, Mr. Chairman, if you'd like me to.
If you're
show it.
able to show us a depiction, I'd appreciate it.
Might take me a little bit of time, but I will definitely do it.
I could hold up the sheet that I have, but it might be easier with Kathy.
Now we're really testing our sophistication in
Oops.
this new age. I'm sorry, Kathy, I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
No, I may not be able to do it, but I will give it a try.
All right, why don't you just
And we-
hold it up, this thing?
Yeah, and I can do that. And we apologize because we had it up, but then the file was too big to send. This, I don't know if you can see it well, Mr. Chairman, that I'm holding up, but that bottom, the bottom, if you can see that, is the gable end.
All right, well.
But the
we'll pull
gable
it
is
up so I
the
can
bump
see
out.
the. Oh, yeah, sure. And that's a back door, I assume.
That is a back door at a ramp, correct?
All right, thank you very much. That's all I have. Why don't you go on to the variance presentation?
Okay.
then?
Could
I
I,
will do that.
could I just ask one question, Mr. Chairman? I'm
Oh,
sorry.
sure, please.
It just came to mind. I know you're planning on combining the lots, and one of the requirements was an interconnection between the two. I
Yes.
noticed in your summary of reason you referenced an interconnection, but I'm not seeing it on the plan. Could you show us on the plan where you have an interconnection with the two properties?
Yes, Kieran, could you put your sheet S2BA back up, please? And that was what, this was what was approved before, and we'll show it to you, Mr. Igo, once we get the plan back up. Right there.
Oh, I see. Okay. You're very, I apologize. I recall that now from the last meeting.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
No problem. As I start the variance discussion, maybe in response to a comment, Mr. DeYoung, that you made, one of the benefits, I think, of this format is that the screen can be shared and we can zoom in to help the board see exact sections, which is not always as easy in the room. So for the variance, could you zoom out a little bit on that, Kieran? Kieran will go through the details, but for the zoning relief and the legal requirement, what we're looking at is on the 2 east and west, those Kieran's running along there. Along those sides, this gets to building modulation again. What we are requesting is permission to have open balconies on that side, and as opposed to being enclosed. And I'm just going to discuss the why, and then Kieran can discuss the, actually, maybe what we could do, Mr. Chairman, it might be easier if I can reserve discussion on the legal rationale for it. If it would be helpful to the board, Kieran could go over and show you the elevations for that, and then we could discuss that if that would be helpful.
Sure, that'd be great.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, again, so the portions that we are looking at for the relief around the east and west side at the back of the building, on the front portion of the building, which is most visible from Route 28, we are proposing a handicapped enclosure right here, an area right here to break up this length that's over 70 feet, and also an area right here. I do have the floor plans for this building that I can depict all these as well in a moment. We are also doing a new portico over the entranceway in this area. The area we need relief is along these areas right now. Currently, there are porches and decks and overhangs. There are some plantings on the bottom floor, and there is a concrete pad on the upper floor so somebody can sit out on. The buildings themselves, this is the first floor plan. You can see we're adding this area on the west side, the front port here. This is the small bump out in the front to break up the linear footage along here. We're also including this door here and putting in a handicapped accessible ramp on this side to break up those areas. The area where we need the relief is in between these areas right here. They do have roofs and they do have concrete walls to break them up. The view that it looks like, this is on the left hand side, is what we're proposing. This shows the railings, sliding doors on top, doors right here on the bottom, and railing on the bottom to make it that usable outdoor space. The one on the right is what it would look like if it was compliant. And even though there is not a huge amount of difference, the one on the left we believe is more attractive. And the, you know, as Andrew will talk to the economic value of those changes later on. But the one on the left here is what we are looking at. You can see there's a substantial amount of work being done. This entire roof area is being added to these buildings. Right now it is a flat roof. So this is entirely being added for the entire length of the building. And these gables right here and cupolas are being added every second section of building. Right now, basically there's a concrete wall every second unit. And what these are going to do is break up those outdoor looking areas. The building itself, as I mentioned, we comply in the front, and then it's just the east and west sides as we go back further away from the street. The front of the building would look now, as you can see, like this. We have this area right here, which is going to be the add-on. We're going to have this area right here, which is going to be the enclosed handicap ramp. And we're also going to have an area over here in this area, which is going to break up the 50-foot linear distance as well. This is what the east side of the building looks like when you stand on 834 and you look over. You can see that we have these. We have 2 units here, then a space of 2 units, and then another gable here, and then it goes back down towards the building, breaking them up every second unit. We do have one of these added. So there's a substantial amount of effort being put into breaking up the long length of that roof. And the same that's on the west side and east side, and we have the same over here on the west side. Other than that, I just hand it back to you, Andrew.
Okay, thank you, Kieran. If you could leave the 4.2 up, or one of those side elevations there for the board. I think that's very helpful. This one's fine. So the reason we're here, and this again has been reviewed with design review and site plan and the site plan reviews with the planning board, but it does not meet the technical bump out requirements because it doesn't have those exterior walls. And so we are asking for variance relief. And in response to what we discussed with the board last time, and you have this in the summary of reasoning, we did some additional discussion for the board as to why we believe the variance criteria are satisfied. Specifically, under chapter MGL 48, section 10 in the Yarmouth zoning bylaw, we have to show, as you know, that there are unusual soil condition, shape, or topography of the land or the structures that create a hardship, and then that the requested relief can be granted without being detrimental or violative of the intent or public good. We submit in this case that the structure, reusing the structure, this is a very solid building that is being reused for this very well needed use, as opposed to being torn down and redeveloped. And so we're requesting the relief to leave these open. The principal hardship, or one of the principal hardships, is financial, and we'll discuss that with the Wolfman case. But I also would like to the board to explain many of the practical concerns that are a hardship in this case. Specifically, by what would be the hardship is not allowing this. So the benefits of what you see in front of you are many. Specifically, it will allow the residents' apartments to receive much more sunlight and not be dark. It will allow them safe, private and personal spaces to sit outside throughout the year as weather conditions dictate or allow. It significantly improves the breathability and attractiveness of the apartments. And the next one is very key, particularly in these times of COVID. Emergency public safety access to the apartments will be available from outside the building with much more ease this way, as well as there is the potential an alternative future exterior access to the units down those open decks as may be needed to deal with COVID-19 and changing regulations. And this is something that the applicants, and Mr. Wise is in this industry, has been doing it for many, many years. As they adjust to new regulations, this is something that is very key that this design that is before you allows. If these spaces were to be enclosed, they would be small, unheated, very dark, mostly dead storage spaces. They would not provide, they'd have sliders, but they would not provide the light, the air, the breathability, or the function that what you have in front of you will provide. The expense, and this is where the Wolfman case that I gave you comes in, or I referenced in my summary of reasoning. In Wolfman, the court affirmed variances that a Board of Appeals had granted, in part based on the fact that there were significant cost increases to comply with the bylaw in that case. In this case, we have potential cost increases to enclose all of these ends, 9 of them up and down each side of the building, that are triple, if not more, than what the Wolfman case was looking at. We're talking in the high 6 figures. And we believe, and this is something we've discussed with town staff, that the expense to enclose these small spaces, to add exterior walls, sliders, the additional structural consideration and construction, if the literal enforcement of the bylaw is made, would be a significant financial and practical hardship. These 2 portions of the east and west side of the building are not very or at all visible from Route 28. They are back behind the front portion of the building, which, as Kieran noted to you, will be completely conforming and does not need any relief from you this evening. And the rest of the building itself, the whole building, will comply. Again, the flat roof going to the roofs, the gables that you see here, the cupolas, that all is much, much more attractive than the flat roof that's there now. And it's just leaving those outside walls open, which is why we're here. That, I submit, is the hardship request. And in this case, it's also very much why this request is not going to harm the public good or derogate from the intent and purpose of the bylaw. So I think those same reasons govern the grant and support the grant of the variance in this case. There will not be any undue nuisance, hazard, or congestion. There will not be any undue unsightliness of the project. There will be no substantial or any harm to the character of the neighborhood or the town. So we believe in this case that the changes before you do merit the grant of a variance. And with that, we're asking for 2 things tonight, and you may take 2 votes or 1, but for the 834 building, we'd respectfully request that you make findings and grant the special permit to allow it to be constructed, the bump out on the east side. And for the 822 building, this larger building, we respectfully request that you make the findings that the variance criteria are satisfied and grant the variance to allow just these open balconies and patios on the east and west side of the building. If you have any questions, we'd be happy to answer them, and we appreciate your time.
Well, thank you very much. If we could, please, let's start our questioning with Mr. Martin. Any questions of the petitioner or the petitioner's representative or Mr. Healy?
No, I've been through this quite a bit, and I think they're very logical requests that aren't derogating from the intent of the bylaw in any way, and make even more sense with people being able to get the fresh air and dealing with COVID and emergency access and all that. So in terms of the open decks and certainly the other little bump out gives that some dimension that we want on the other building and doesn't derogate from the again, the intent of the bylaw based on that small differential for the setback.
How about you, Mr. Nicanello? Any comments, questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would say that I like the new look. I have many years to go before I could be, apply for one of those little residents there. And I do have no questions at the time. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
God bless.
Mr. Igo, any questions?
Are you speaking with me, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Igo, any questions?
I don't have any questions. I do have some comments. I could make them now or save them for later, Chair.
No, feel free to make them now.
Well, the petitioner was here some weeks back addressing this issue. The previous plan I did not support because I did not think that it met the criteria or the standards as set forth under 414.8. Those standards that they have are quite strict. It does not really allow for any varying of those standards, and it is explicit in the bylaw. What they've come back with tonight, I think is much different. I think what they have done as far as the appearance of the building from Route 28 certainly meets the design standards. The representation as to what they're going to do on the east and west sides of the building, wrapping around as they've showed us, that part does meet the design standards. They have certainly proposed to put a lot of money into this building by running the roof lines. They have gables that run on the east and west sides. It really comes down to the patios and the balconies. And the design standards require those bump outs. I am persuaded by the argument about the open space with the balconies for the future residents. I think it makes much more sense than having an enclosed bump out that you have to heat, and it would probably take away light. And it does offer the open space outside for them. I think one of the issues that we as a board face when we're brought something like this is just how, again, strict this section of the bylaw is. It doesn't really allow us a lot of room to be a bit more subjective in looking at the criteria. And in fact, it says that we're not allowed to, I've got it right in front of me. We're not allowed to vary from the standards at all. But having said that, I think if you look at this particular building and what they've done, I do find a persuasive argument to grant the variance criteria, because I do think they've met those design standards in as far as the appearance is going to be from Route 28. As I said at my last hearing, it would be my recommendation that the planning board take another look at this section of the bylaw. I think at the time that they adopted it, and the town adopted it, they may have had something in mind, but things change, and you can always tweak the bylaw one way or the other as you move through it. And you meet these certain challenges on the ground when you try to redevelop all of these properties along Route 28, because they all are a little bit different. So I'm not sure that one size fits all in as far as bump outs and eaves and roof lines and what have you. But in terms of this particular property right here, Mr. Chairman, I do think what they have done in this latest proposal does meet the purpose and intent of the bylaw. I don't think we'd be derogating from that purpose and intent if we were to grant the variance relief here tonight. So I would be in favor of this. And I also think they meet the criteria for the special permit next door. I think that one's a lot easier for us to look at. I don't think there'd be any undue sense of the congestion, and I don't think it's going to be a problem for the neighbor. But I am impressed with what they've done. They've certainly made a good faith effort than what they had before. I think Attorney Singer has made a persuasive argument with the variance criteria. I do think it would be a substantial financial hardship to the petitioner to comply with the bylaw, and I don't necessarily think that it would be a plus for the future residents if we were to make them comply with it. I think they may be better off with what they have. So I think they've struck a balance here by proposing what they have in meeting the criteria so as to be seen from Route 28, that they have met it, the design standards. And I think that the board could grant the relief for the various criteria with relative to the patios and the balconies, and still maintain the intended purpose of what the voters passed at town meeting. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Ms. Britta?
No, Mr. Chairman, just want to comment that Sean's recollection of what the situation was when the applicant appeared several weeks ago, what the problem was and how they've come back with the solution is exactly what we expected of them. And Sean's recollection and recitation and narrative is precisely what we were looking for. So they had to be commended. They listened, and they listened to the board, and they came back with a solution. So I have no other comments other than that, Mr. Chairman.
Well, thank you very much. Not having sat on that earlier hearing, nor did I review the hearing, because this is a new request standing on its own merits. I'll accept whatever the representations by my fellow board members were, but this is not a continuation of that hearing. So I just want everybody to know that I'm not going to, nor should I, certify having reviewed that. Having said that, as it relates to the variance, I understand what the concern is and was probably back then, that the standard is very high. Interestingly, when these provisions were made, it was anticipated that the planning board would take the lead in most of these various design issues and the like, and that the design review would also chime in, both of which support these changes. I also think that we have to perhaps address that issue at town meeting if it's as restrictive as Mr. Igo views it. And I'll tell you why, because it strikes me that when we require a person wanting to invest in our town, in order to be compliant, to sacrifice functionality and incur expense for no good reason, then something is wrong. And I think that we should have a mechanism whereby we can look at these various criteria established by the town meeting and for a very, very good purpose in each instance. And it's primarily, as we know, to break up these long runs of buildings that are likely to be the subject of remodeling. And so, it makes sense, but it also doesn't make sense when its functionality is as limited as council would care to point out. It would be a long, narrow storage area that would likely be wet and would likely be unheated and would likely be of no utility to the parties that are living in that particular unit. I do agree that the criteria has been met, particularly with the emphasis on the word expense. The special permit, in my mind, has been met, but of course we do have to, before going on to a vote, invite anybody in the public that would like to speak on this. But I think this special permit request is absolutely de minimis. It's 21.1 feet. Is that what it turns out to be, Mr. Singer?
Yes, 20.1.
Or 20.1.
20.1 for this little area.
All right. So, it's 20 feet versus 25 is probably something that no a person could go out there and necessarily measure with their eye. It doesn't seem like a dramatic bump out. I do like the idea of breaking up these long walls. I think Mr. Healy showed that very, very well in his presentation. And the design concept is very attractive and a very attractive remodel of this site, particularly with the expense of the now pitched roof. So good job, gentlemen, on designing something that is going to be a nice addition to that corridor, that portion of the corridor, Route 28. Does anyone in our public care to speak first in favor of petition 4849?
No one has their hand raised.
Thank you. Does anyone care to speak in opposition to 4849?
No one has their hand raised.
Thank you. And so as a consequence, we now close the public commentary on it and open it up to the discussion about whether or not special permit should be granted or variance should be granted. I have to tell you, I think that before we get there, I think that the criteria has been well discussed. So I don't think we need to address the criteria. I think we have to address whether or not we're all in favor of the first special permit. We will take 2 votes, of course. And relative to the special permit, is anybody prepared to make a motion at this time?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion. It's Tom Nicanello for the special permit.
And that's Mr. Nicanello?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm sorry, I can't discern you other than Dick's voice necessarily. So it's Tom is making the motion to approve, and that would be without condition.
On the special permit, yes, Mr. Chairman.
All right, and is there anybody interested in making a second to that motion?
Mr. Chairman, Dick Martin, I'll second it.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. All right, so with respect to that motion made to grant the special permit as requested in petition 4849 and relating to building 834, does anyone care to have discussion before moving along to a vote? And hearing none, all those in favor of that motion made and seconded, please. Here I go again. I'm sorry, I got to get used to these new rules. Mr. Martin, what's your vote on that motion?
I vote aye.
All right, Mr. Nicanello?
Yes, aye, sir.
Okay, Ms. Britta?
Aye.
Thank you. And Mr. Igo, please?
Aye.
Thank you. And my vote would be an aye as well. So therefore, that carries unanimously. If we can go now to the variance request, I think we need another motion. And is anybody prepared to make it?
I'd like to make a motion that we grant the request for variance
Without condition?
without, well, the only condition would be is as represented in the petition for the patios and the balconies.
I'm sorry, you faded off for me there.
I would say that the only condition that I would have for the variance relief is the variance was requested for the patios and the balconies only.
All right.
Second that motion.
And that's Mr. Martin? Oh, Mr. Nicanello, I'm sorry, yeah. Okay. See, I see your faces. I don't get to see the gallery. I apologize. All right, so the motion made by Mr. Igo to approve the variance request on the sole condition that it relates only to petitions and balconies as requested for in the petition 4849. Mr. Nicanello has seconded that with the same request for a condition. Does the board care to have any discussion before moving along to a vote?
I just wanted to clarify one thing with the petitioner, with Attorney Singer, that is what you asked for in your request?
Yes, that is correct. This is for the balconies and the patios on the east and west sides of the building only.
Okay. Yeah, yes, that was, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Singer, for identifying that. All right. Again, does the board have any questions of Mr. Singer, Mr. Healy, or anybody? Hearing none, all those in favor? Ms. Britta, what's your vote?
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Nicanello,
Aye.
Mr. Martin,
Aye.
Mr. Igo?
Aye.
All right, and I again am voting aye as well. That carries unanimously. Mr. Singer, as you know, I will look forward to seeing a draft decision. I appreciate that whenever you do it and always find that they're right on the money, so to speak. And of course, as you know, once that decision is filed with the town clerk's office, that you then must wait 20 days before that is considered final on either the special permit or the variance. And barring any no appeal, assuming there be no appeal, you would then return proof of recordation back to us of the decision being filed with the registry of deeds. Okay.
We will do.
You know,
Thank you.
you know all that, don't you? You've been down, you've ridden in this rodeo before, haven't you?
That I have. And
Well,
we thank
good
you
to
very
see
much
you.
for your time.
Good to see you, and particularly good to see you as well, Mr. Healy. We missed you in person, the two of you, and we're missing being together. I got to tell you, my board members, I do miss being there to say hi to, and particularly Sandy's Candy. But I do want to say before we sign off, I think that each one of us on this board, knowing the members of it so well, are in complete agreement that we should express our gratitude to all working in the public safety sector. The men in blue, the firefighters, the EMTs, and the like, the hospital workers, nurses, the people in the grocery stores, the keepers, and the like. I think we need to give them a resounding thank you. I hope the board members agree, and if you do, you don't have to have any discussion, but I'll say it hopefully for all of us, okay? Good to see you. Good
Thank
to
you
see you.
very
Look
much.
forward to seeing you. Good night.
Good night.
Good
Thank
night.
you all.
Good night to all.
Night.
Thank you.